Neville Goddard, 1959 lectures. Esau and Jacob, November 13th, 1959. One of my favorites. Whenever he gets into this, I love it. Great, great, great stuff right here. So we'll get into that. As I promised last Tuesday, I now want to give you my personal technique that I use when I pray for myself or for others. But for the benefit of those who are here for the first time, I want to say that we believe here that imagination creates reality. And because only God creates reality, your imagining and my imagining are one with the supreme power men call God. In order to tell you of my technique, I must go back and give you the reasons. I will go back to my personal experiences and tie them together with the Bible. It speaks of the birth of a child in Genesis 25, the child of Isaac and Rebekah. Rebekah, desiring to conceive after 20 years of barrenness, prayed unto the Lord, and the Lord responded to her prayer, and she felt this strange struggle going on within her, and she wondered why. And the Lord said, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples born of you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other, the elder shall serve the younger. And then the moment of delivery out came, and then at the moment of delivery out came first a red hairy being, and then came another whose hand was holding the heel of the first, and he was smooth-skinned and hairless. The first was called Esau, and the second was called Jacob. Now the story is, bring me Jacob. If you remember it, Jacob took Esau's birthright, and then he took his blessing, and Esau said to his father Isaac, have you no blessing for me? And Isaac his father said, you shall live by the sword. You shall serve your brother, but when you break loose, you shall break his yoke from your neck. That was the only blessing he could give to his firstborn son, for he had given it all to Jacob, which means the supplanter. It makes no sense if you take it literally. It has nothing to do with persons called Rebekah or Esau or Jacob. It is all within you that this drama is unfolding. I was 7 years old when it happened to me, and I found myself in an infinite stormy ocean. I was the ocean, and yet I was Neville. It seemed unconcerned as to what it did to Neville, and it tossed Neville like a wave, and Neville was scared almost to death. The ocean did not care, yet I, Neville, was also the ocean. This happened once a month from my 7th to 12th year, and I could tell from the strange sense of expectancy I felt during the day when it was going to happen. I dreaded to go to sleep, for when I began to go to sleep, then I became one with this immensity, and it was all this great ocean. And then a separation took place between the ocean and its wave, but I was still the ocean. Month after month, this division took place until my 12th year, then it vanished. I mentioned it before in another video where I did have the same experience, and I'm going to guess starting about 3, 4, because I remember it was in a certain house we lived in. I had a similar experience, but it wasn't the ocean, and I heard it described by Seth. I mentioned this in another video. Like I said, I've heard it described by Seth to Jane one time. Basically, I felt really, really microscopic, and at the same time, I could feel that size. I then would also alternate between feeling immense, meaning so big that I could encompass everything. And then the weird feeling of it was I would bounce back between the two, and it would have me quite dizzy, going between the two back and forth. And it was quite a strange feeling. And I would get it, I think I would get that during catalepsy maybe, or definitely a hypnagogic state, right in the SATS moment, or either going into sleep or almost into sleep. In that state, usually when falling asleep, never when waking up. And I had it quite a bit when I was little, but not like clockwork like he did, but I had it quite a bit. And then I had it as an adult. I think I've had it in this calendar year, as a matter of fact, once already. And before that, I can say maybe a couple years ago. And it comes and goes for me, from my experience. Back to Neville. When I was 21, it returned on a different key. One night I was contemplating samadhi, and I was reading this book on the life of Buddha, the light of Asia. I fell into an involuntary trance. When I awoke, the sun was up and I had not moved for 10 hours. But during that interval, I became infinite liquid light. I was not then divided. There was nothing but light. I was the one reality, and I was infinite light. That was the second experience. Then came others of a secondary state of this division. I was projected with a certain intensity out of my body. I became aware for the first time of this division, and then I was more than just this being of flesh and blood. I was out, and this reality was in the room looking at this body on the bed. Then I desired to get back into the body, integrating as a unit, and do it consciously. I did it, and then with a deliberate conscious intention, I intensified this power, and I felt myself moving out again. I desired to come down into the room, and I made a sort of loop. A cloud formation was over the head, but everything was in detail. I could see through the breaks in the cloud, the face that I see every day in the mirror, my face. I tried to go through the wall, and I could not, and then I made a great leap at the wall and knocked myself back into the body again. He wasn't flying through walls yet. Man thinks that when he looks into a mirror, that is all he is. Burn him up and he is gone. It is not so at all. Man that appears from the womb is this picture of the twin that comes into the world. Every child that comes from woman is Esau. You may be quite hairless by normal standards, but you are still Esau. He changes his name from Esau to Edom, which means redness or red blood. This being always comes first into the world, and after him comes one to supplant him, and that is Jacob. You do not see Jacob, he is hidden. So it is said that he had no hair, he lived in a tent. That tent was Esau. Then comes the separation. For God and only God brings about that separation, and God is that infinite ocean that will take this being and toss him over and over to bring about this separation. There is something in man that brings about this separation and separates Jacob from Esau. Have you no blessing for me, Father? You asked me to bring you venison, and now I discover my brother has deceived you. Surely he is well named the supplanter. He took my birthright and then my blessing, but surely, Father, you have a blessing left for me. This is it. You shall live by the sword. You shall serve your brother. But when you break loose, you shall break his yoke from your neck. There is something in this body that can break loose from this commanding power, and then it dies. That is all Esau can do. So this garment, the body, is under command to obey Jacob. Jacob is all imagination. There is a being in man that divides this garment, that moves by compulsion, and when he breaks loose, there is no Esau. Isaiah 49, he who forged me from the womb formed me to bring Jacob again unto him. All he wants is Jacob. He wants to awaken in every being a center of imagining, and that center is called Jacob, the little one. How will he stand? For he is so little. I scare him to death, but I do it to make him alive, and a center that can create. In the later Gospels, it is called Jesus, the supreme being that rules the world. Now, from these experiences, I saw the Bible differently. I would read the book and see it differently. I have had only one real beating in my life, and that was by a man who blew out his brains 6 months later. He asked me about a Bible passage. What does it say? I said, take your bed and walk. He said, bring me the book. I said, my brother has it. There was 9 of us, and we did not have 9 Bibles. My brother Cecil had it, and I could not get it. The teacher brought out a cane, a long supple thing, and then I had to get over a bench, and then he simply took out on my body what it took to explode a sexual expression in him. Then he stopped and I was bleeding. 6 months later, he shot himself. It was all because of that passage in the Bible that he beat me. But maybe that was part of the pattern when I misquoted according to his standard, for his version said, take up your couch, and mine said bed. But it only means that on which one was resting. It was only a part of the pattern. So I was being tossed by that ocean. But it seemed not to care about that which it tossed. But still, though it was scared, it knew it could not cease to be. And so it was part of a plan to separate it so that it could become a center for creation. So I saw the Bible differently. What is the technique? In my 21st year when I meditated, I became identified with the bliss I contemplated as a sea of liquid golden light. Then I understood absorption. That was the secret. If I became completely identified with a state and named it to the degree that I became absorbed, it worked. What became absorbed? Not the garment, Esau. It was Jacob, which is all imagining. Jacob had to be separated from Esau. 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples born of you shall be divided, and one shall be stronger than the other. The elder shall serve the younger. I discovered that the thing divided from this which I washed and fed was my imagination. And then I found I could put my imagination any place in space. I put it into my own nephew, and when my sister looked at her son, who was about to make his exit, she saw not his face, but mine. For I laid down Esau and became Jacob and became Billy, and determined to be seen by my sister, and my sister saw not her son lying on the bed, but her brother Neville. That night she wrote to me that she had seen my face and not Billy's. When I first heard this one, I was actually going to practice this with my grandmother. She just left a party at age 93 2 Junes ago. Or was it last June? Yeah, 2 Junes ago. 2 Junes ago in 2023. And then in September approximately, we celebrated. But before that, before she left the party, half a year so, I came across this lecture and I heard it, I believe, and I was going to practice that because my grandma and I were close. And I was simply going to go there to where she was. She's in 2 states away. So I decided I didn't, my aunt who was minding her, she was caring for my grandmother, her daughter, and I knew if I did this that my grandmother would see me, but I didn't know how my aunt would react. But I knew when I first heard this, I go, okay, I'm going to practice this with my grandma. But I'm like, no, I don't want to cause too much of a ruckus over there. But I can see exactly how Neville did it with his sister's son. I can see the simplicity of it so easily. So I just decided not to do it. I haven't practiced it yet, and it just depends on the other side, the other party. Neville's sister's is definitely a closer situation than my situation there. And even though my grandmother and I were very, 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 very close, wonderful lady. But I chose not to do it. But I know I could easily have done it. It crossed my mind many times. And I will do it, and I'll update you whenever I do it with whomever I do. Okay. That night she wrote to me that she had seen my face and not Billy's. When I wanted to go to Barbados and did not have a penny, I slept in my imagination in Barbados and saw the world from Barbados, keyword from, and I went there through the efforts of my family who thought they had initiated the trip. When I identified myself with a state, others responded. They move like automatons. And then I wondered if I should do it. And then I went back to that passage in Genesis. You shall serve your brother, and every man in the world you shall serve. And when you feel right about it, and then you will feel right about it. Excuse me. This one was imagining, and every being in the world is serving him. You do not have to ask anyone in the world to help you, no matter what they say. I'm going to repeat this section here. And then I went back to that passage in Genesis, and here it is. You shall serve your brother, and every man in the world you shall serve, and then you feel right about it. This one was imagining, and every being in the world is serving him. You do not have to ask anyone in the world to help you, no matter what they say. Esau can only live while you have your yoke upon his neck. And when he breaks that yoke off his neck, Esau dies. Yet he perpetuates himself constantly before he dies, that Jacob may put his yoke on another neck. And Jacob is called in the New Testament Jesus Christ. Yes, indeed. The old man dies. That's breaking the yoke. Break that yoke off his neck. Esau dies. That's the old man. That's killing the old man. Here's an exercise that I have found very helpful. At home, where I know what every part of a given room looks like, I sit in a chair facing one wall. And with my eyes closed, I look ahead and see not the wall that is in front of me, but the one that is behind me. I see that wall in my mind's eye, and it is now in front of me. Then the room has reversed itself, or I have reversed myself. Throughout the whole Bible, there is this tone of reversibility. I discovered as I read it that it means this. So I see what is behind me as if it were in front of me. Here is another exercise. I would sit physically in my living room in New York City and assume that I was actually standing on the street in front of my apartment house, and standing there on the street, I would see details on the marquees of the building. Physically, I was in my living room on the 16th floor. But in my imagination, I was on the street and I was seeing it. Then, still in imagination, I would walk back into the building, come upstairs, and sit down where Esau was. And the next time I actually did go out and took Esau, when I reached the street and looked at the marquee, I saw on it what I had not noticed the last time I looked at it physically. Taking Esau means he went there. He's physically is Esau. Going there in his imagination, that's Jacob. Luckily for me, when this began to appear when I was 7, there was no psychoanalysts in the little island of Barbados, and if there had been, my father could have not afforded them. They would not have known what was happening to me. Luckily for the work I was to do, I was born there on this little island that had no importance in the world and no psychoanalysts. Exclamation point. Lovely. So no one could disturb what my father was doing to bring about this separation. It went on for 5 years, from 7 to 12, and then I was torn apart, but I did not lift that being out until I was 21 and saw it differently. There were not two of us, but I was it, and I could say I and my father. But in the beginning, I could only call it a stormy ocean. I was it, and I was also Neville. When I was 21, I saw it and became absorbed in it, or else there was no Neville. There came this separation on different levels to show how you can pray. You can be anything in this world. I would take a piece of wood, or a flower, or an animal, and try to feel myself as it, and I finally could feel what it would be like to be a glass of water. In our Seth classes, we did this one time, and I forget which book Seth gives this instruction, but it's a good one. I actually walked around my house as my previous dog and I saw everything from his perspective. And it changed my perspective completely. I often do that with my current dog. This was our previous dog, same style of dog. But in the classes back then, I really literally walked around if I said my apartment, I think I might have mistake, in my house. I don't know if I did or not, but either way, mixing my pets together over time. So being on the floor and looking up as the dog was quite a perspective because, and then I walked, what Seth had us do in that exercise was walk literally through the whole house and walk through the rooms. So what we were doing in that exercise back then, we were using Jacob. Jacob was the one walking as the pet. Esau was the one with the eyes closed, imagining that. And Neville says, you can be anything in the world. I would take a piece of wood or a flower or an animal, which is what we did, or try to feel myself as it. And I finally could feel what it would be like to be a glass of water. All of this is just your imagination. Ask any child to do any of those, and I guarantee it, they will do it immediately. It's too easy for them. It's not even a real test for them. For everything emanates from divine imagining, and I am it. So then I am everything. There is nothing but divine imagining, and it and human imagination are one. Let us come back now to the practical side in dollars and cents. A good friend of mine here got a letter from another friend who is a professor and whom I admire very much, but professors are so pedantic. They are so filled with knowing and with data already outdated in view of present findings that they are actually, you might say, full of ignorance. I really love when Neville says this. They're studying books that get outdated by newer books every single semester or year. And so then when their wave of knowledge gets degreed, they're already outdated. And there's no catching up. There's no continuing education for them. They just ride around with their self-lauded degree on past knowledge. Man is unfolding so rapidly that you are learning from books known to be inaccurate and mistaken. You take unrevised books and commit things to memory, and you get your degree in a university. This professor, it's possible it could be Raynor Johnson, in parentheses here, question marks, wrote my friend regarding the title of my book, Your Fate is Your Fortune. He wrote, you would like me to comment, question mark? I presume he took the statement, your face is your fortune, and just changed the one word, end quote. He did not read the book. Yet it says in the book of Proverbs, he who answers before he hears, it is shame and folly to him. Did you dare to answer before you heard the question? And yet you are not only a professor, but also the master of a college in the university. This professor is coming to our land, and I will recommend that you go to hear him. He completely disapproves of the words faith and fortune. Yet his motive in coming here is still to take back to his own country Money. There is no other reason for his coming, for he is from a department using books already outdated, so what can he give us? So I said to my friend, he has, like so many wise people, mechanical talents, and anyone can take from the inspired work of mystics and write many books and collect money on them. He is coming here only to make some money. But I talk not about a book, but about the book, the Bible. I went through all these experiences, and I know that the secret is identification with the ideal, no matter what it is. If you want money, what is wrong with that? This one who is coming here will not refuse the check when it is offered to him. Who is fooling whom in this world? But you are told, thank you, Father, that you have hidden these things from the wise and pious and revealed them unto babes. So keep company with the babes and shun the so-called wise and holy people. When this division takes place in you, that is God. And you do not need the help of anyone. Everything came upon Jacob, and only the sword was given to Esau. So this Esau, the body, takes food into his stomach, and it must be transformed into bone and blood. It is a stormy process, and the very moment that he breaks loose from the yoke, Jacob has placed on his neck, Esau is dead. It does not matter, for the immortal you is Jacob, and you cannot cease to be. Very, very true. And you have to understand that and get to that. You have to get to the place where there is no end. Let no one tell you that money or anything else is wrong if Jacob wants to exercise his talent for that. Every Esau has to serve Jacob. Jacob's the imagination, Esau's the physical self. Esau must serve Jacob, who's known as the younger. Every Esau has to serve Jacob. If you find Jacob and you dwell in the state and become completely absorbed in it, all the Esau's have to serve you to fulfill that state. And no power in the world can stop it. Read it carefully. Quote, you shall live by the sword and you shall serve your brother. End quote. Esau had to marry the Canaanite, and the word means that which would humiliate. But whom did Jacob marry? That which came out of Laban, 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 the ideal of the world. The garments marry the Canaanite. If my old teacher Ab were here, he would frighten you to death. He used to say, if anyone stands before you and you think him so important, strip him and let him perform the normal functions of life, and you will turn your back on him. Jacob commands the world, and Jacob is imagination. No one has ever seen Jacob because he is like his father, completely invisible. And then you arrive at the point where you discover your own invisibility. J.W. Dunn, whose books are known to you, asks, how can you see something that has no edges? He asked the angel who appeared to him, why can they not see the shadow of God is casting over the world? Why can they not see the shadow God is casting over the world? And the angel replied, because it has no edges. He thought that was right, for it is impossible to see this without a not this, to make comparison. But that is not true. For when man discovers Jacob, he has no edges, but he is more real than all the Esau's of the world. He is everything and all things at all times. Every Esau you see with these is here to serve Jacob. Jacob is your imagination. Jacob is in the world of the real. Esau is in the shadows. Esau serves Jacob. Jacob imagined, Esau puts it together for Jacob. If you're not using your imagination and someone else is, and you're not, you will be the Esau for that Jacob, because that imagination is Jacob. That will be the commandment for you to go to work and fulfill what Jacob imagined. You're the Esau. You're the garment. Here is a statement made by Aldous Huxley regarding D.H. Lawrence. He was a strange man, but he seemed to know what he was talking about. He knew what it was to be a cow or a daisy. He knew the emotions of his favorite cow, and he knew what it was like to be a daisy. He knew what it was to be the moon. Huxley did not understand. He had mechanical talents, and he could describe these things as they were described to him by D.H. Lawrence. Something is taking place in you, and God is doing it. For the depth of your being is God. And when this is done, then Jacob is divided from Esau. Everything is given to Jacob. And never shall the scepter fall from his hand. So I have given you my technique in praying. I do not assume the responsibility for making anything. So after I have identified myself with the state that I desire, I let it be so. It may take a day or a week or a month, and sometimes I never hear about it, but I know it must come true. for my word cannot return unto me void. I see what I want to see, and then I let it be true. I do not lift a finger to make it true, for how can I discuss it when it is already so? You have to get to that place too. That's Abdullah telling Neville, you want to go to Barbados? You are already in Barbados. You can't want to go there when you're already there. You can't discuss going there when you're already there. It's not possible to go. It's not possible to talk about, you get on a plane, you go fly to Hawaii, you're on the beach, you're on the North Shore, you're at Waimea Bay, you're sitting there under some palm trees. You're not going to sit there and talk about going to Hawaii. How could you? It would make exactly zero sense. It doesn't even do anything to you to talk about going to Hawaii when you're sitting there on the beach, soaking up the sun. It wouldn't come out. It couldn't come out. So, if you put yourself there as Jacob, you're there. So to then continue to talk about it is defeating. It's trying to say Esau's in charge, not Jacob. No. Jacob is in charge. Your imagination is Jacob. The supplanter is in charge of what you are doing as Esau. Whenever you have imagined yourself as you want to be and you have felt the thrill of it, that is Jacob's command. And the outer being has to move through all these states to fulfill it. Whether that means go get and get a contract or get the funding or get whatever, someone's going to take you, or you win a contest, you win the puppy, you win the bike, you win the house, you win, because Jacob already has commanded it. All the Esau's will put that together for you. The greatest visions in the world are in the Bible. Let this one or that one justify their little comments on the words faith or fortune. The act of faith is the power of God. The act of faith is the power of God working in man to justify the way of man in need. So I sit down in my chair and I see before me what is not physically before me, and then I am turned around. This outer garment, Neville, was put through all the paces from 7 to 21, and then came this fulfillment of July 21st of this year, the birth of the babe out of my own being. And I saw the complete separation of that little one called Jesus Christ from that which is Esau. Out of Esau came Jacob. And out of Mary comes Jesus Christ. And both come from a separation or a tearing away. It has nothing to do with dogma. Do you want it to be? Well, you name it. Identify yourself with it. Completely absorb yourself with it. The outer man cannot do it, so the inner man has done it, for he has commanded that you shall serve your brother. This hairy garment comes first, and then comes the one you cannot see, and that is Jacob. So no matter who you are, this is the plan of God to awaken sons. This outer world seems to come first, but it comes to awaken God who created it. When he individualizes himself, what he wants most is Jacob. The whole of the physical world is completed, and we are told the whole of the physical world is completed, and we are told it is now melting in radiation. And then when the yoke is taken from Esau's neck, he is dead. Let no one tell you that you are some little worm. And what does every single university teach? Let no one tell you that you are some little worm. You are here because there is that child of God to be separated from the outer form by which you are recognized when you walk the street. That would be Esau. Exercise this power for everyone in the world, and not only wish them well, but identify yourself with your wish for them. Then it is done, and you do not need to raise a finger to make it so. You let it be so. You will conform to what you have done. It does not matter who they are, whether they are simple people or if they have degrees. These degrees are given by Esau to Esau. And you are only concerned with Jacob. Isaiah 49, he who formed me from the womb to be his servant and to bring Jacob to him again. Repeating, he who formed me from the womb to be his servant and to bring Jacob to him again. There in your Bible you will read it. How can you find him? He is so small, how can Jacob stand? He will stand all right. How small he is I know, for the infinite ocean tossed me on its back, and I know it did not care. It was doing it for a purpose. I was tossed all over its infinity. I was afraid to go to sleep when I sensed the approach of these nights, and then when I closed my eyes, this separation took place. He was pulling me out of myself. He was pulling me out of himself. That was the great ocean of life. When you understand this, you will know what the flood means and the true meaning of the story of the ark. So tonight, if I could give you my technique in essence, it is this. I sit quietly in a chair. I do not lie down, for that position is associated with sleep. I sit in a chair and I imagine and become absorbed and identified with whatever another asks of me as if it were already realized. To me, it is then real, and they are standing before me and telling me the exciting news of having realized their dream. Imagining lovingly for another, just like we do during our going into the silence periods. I sit in a chair and I imagine and become absorbed and identified with whatever another asks of me, as if it were already realized. To me, it is then real. And they are standing before me and telling me the exciting news of having realized their dream. That's how you do it. It's that simple. If physically they were in tears, it would make no difference, for that is only Esau. And I know that he must go through something to bring Jacob. Jacob is the supplanter. Jacob's the new man. I am not interested. Listen to that sentence again. If physically they were in tears, it would make no difference, for that is only Esau, and I know that he must go through something to bring Jacob. I am not interested. Esau must serve Jacob. If they call me next day and tell me the most awful story, it does not matter, for they started when Jacob gave the command, and all the blessings of the universe were given to Jacob, and everyone has to serve him. If they call me to say they have been fired, I say good. When they had been fired, they became the fulfillment of what I had heard for them, and they will find that it was the turning point to take them to what they desired. Afterward, they may forget how it happened, but you do not forget that it was Jacob who gave the command. Now call him by a new name and call him Christ Jesus. Read the genealogy and you will see Esau came first, then Jacob. John came first, then Jesus. They both came in a miraculous way. Isaac's wife was barren for 20 years, and then he prayed. Jesus was born of a virgin. It has nothing to do with a man or a woman. I am every character in the Bible, and these are only imaginal activity. And this was an imaginal activity that could pull out of itself what it desired. Everyone that comes from below by physical birth has to come first, and that is Esau. And he will be torn apart so that he will be separated, and then the child is born. And then there is no limit to the translucency of expansion of the Son of God. Let us go into the silence. All right. Is Jacob busy giving the command right now? That is who is in charge right now when you are in the silence. And as you see through Jacob's eyes, you see Esau performing the tasks. Very good. Doesn't take long. It doesn't take much. Just grab a situation and do like Neville just said he did. Sharing the good news, celebrate, hug, high five, touch, smell, see. Question. Will you explain further about seeing another part of the room? Answer. Practice by location. This is the tearing apart of Jacob from Esau. Sit in one room of your home and view another room and see what you would see if you were physically there. And you tear yourself apart. It's the same thing we just did by going in the silence. We can easily do this. I can right now, I'm sitting where I am with my eyes closed. I can see myself in my kitchen. I can literally, easily, because I've been there so many times, I can see my kitchen. I can walk to the counter. I can touch it. I can touch the sink. I can reach for the faucet, turn it on. I actually can feel the water on my hand right now. I can stop that activity, dry off with the towel. I can turn around, go to the refrigerator. I can open the doors and I can feel the cold air. I can feel it right now. Closing the doors to the fridge, I walk to the front door and open the front door. I could hear that front door crack. I hear the noise it makes. And I could sense the air from outside. And I could sense my doggie right at my feet at the screen door. He starts to grumble and bark because there's a dog walking by. Across the street, a lady is walking her small little doggie. And Ziggy can smell that dog. So now I'm pushing Ziggy back and I'm closing the door because he's barking. Now I'm going to walk back through my kitchen and walk back to where I'm sitting. Now I'm sitting here, opening my eyes, looking at you. Am I surprised I'm not in any of those places? No, because Jacob walked here and sat and opened his eyes. Esau stayed still. Esau didn't go to my kitchen. Jacob did. And every single thing I just did was a bilocation practice. That's all Jacob. Also all Christ Jesus. Either one, that's okay. To me, I find it neat and fun to use the Esau-Jacob metaphor because it's wonderful. I, being a twin, born first, stillborn brother, I can identify with that Esau-Jacob so wonderfully well that I can easily understand because my brother is not here. But I have become him. I have awakened as my own brother, if this makes sense. So when I just did my bilocation practice, as my own brother, I walked into the kitchen and did those activities and then walked back. Doesn't matter. This is all fun and games. Have fun with this. Want to say Jacob and Esau? Great. You want to say Christ Jesus? Great. The names don't matter. Just get the practice. Close those robbers. Close the door to your closet and imagine yourself in those rooms. Fun stuff. You got to get that flexibility moving. You got to break the rust off of there. Okay. Let's go ahead and repeat that piece right here. The bilocation. Practice bilocation. This is the tearing apart of Jacob from Esau, which is what I just did. Sit in one room of your home and view another room and see what you would see if you were physically there. And you tear yourself apart. Do not walk completely integrated as a being that is only a garment of flesh. That is Esau. For man is all imagining, and he is always where he is in his imagination. Very important sentence. For man is all imagining, and he is always where he is in his imagination. I woke up this morning I told my wife before she left, I says, I woke up in a vision of us, because we had that hotel story I told you about. So I woke up this morning and we were looking at another same era 40s building, but on the coast, on the actual edge, overlooking the water, and same era. And we drove by this hotel. I think it was full, but we did not stay there. And I says, I woke up this morning and I saw us coming out of those rooms, walking our dog, going down to the pier in this city where this hotel is. And I says, I saw us staying at that hotel. And she goes, it's the same year hotel. And I go, oh, interesting. I wonder if they have a modern facilities guy versus the other place we stayed at. Maybe they fired their facilities guy. I don't know. I jest. I have fun with this. But I did wake up, and that was that visioning I was having of us being there and walking out of the rooms and walking down to the pier. That would be activity of Jacob. And that's where real movement happens. Okay? Esau would be the one that got out of bed and discussed what Jacob's activity was. And Jacob, having gone there already, will put all the Esau's to work to bring him there. That's how it works. If you desire security, let no one tell you it is not spiritual. Those who say it is not spiritual are the first who will ask you for a handout. Let no one tell you that you should not have what you want in this world. It is yours if you know who Jacob is and who Esau is, as we are describing and breaking down now. Be ready to go through anything. Now, this is a very, 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 very important point. Be ready to go through anything. If you want to kill the old man and become the new man, if you want to be wealthy, as an example, you must be ready to go through anything. You must be ready to transition and transform into the new you. You must be the new you. If you are the new wealthy you, then the activities you're doing as that new Jacob are not the activities that you're doing as Esau. And it isn't like you have to go write down things to forget and not do this and do this. No, just be ready for your new you to be surprising you with activities. Be ready to go through anything. Esau has to go through it. Esau is the slave of his brother. Jacob is the master. When you break loose from his yoke upon your neck, you are dead. Esau. That's the old man. When you break loose from the yoke on your neck, when you break loose from his yoke upon your neck, you are dead, because Jacob is in the new you, and you, being the Esau, will go with him. You're the shadow that follows Jacob. Jacob is now wealthy. Is imagining the cars, imagining the home, imagining what goes with wealth, imagining the meetings with his financial planners and his account holders, and is becoming that Jacob is moving. That yoke upon the neck of Esau, it's on Jacob. When you break loose from his yoke upon your neck, you are dead. Jacob is the one that has a yoke to Esau. Esau is the slave of his brother. Jacob is the master. Yokes are those Y-shaped things. You know, they're like a servant, and they've put them on like bulls and cows and things that till the field. That's a yoke. Esau is the slave of his brother. He must do the bidding of Jacob. Jacob is there first. Esau follows and serves, lives by the sword. Jacob is the master. When you break loose from his yoke upon your neck, you are dead. When you, Esau, break loose from Jacob's yoke upon your neck, you are dead, because the new you, Jacob's new place, is where the new Esau will be. The old one will be dead. This isn't literal. This is the new you versus the old you. The new habit versus the old habit. Do not be embarrassed at what you lose. Oh man, I don't even want to get into this whole subject, but yes, there are going to be situations that test you. And you are going to be, it's going to feel like the 11th hour, the dark before the dawn. Don't be afraid of it. If you lose something that is extremely supposedly valuable to you, understand that that belonged to Esau, the old man, the one that's now dead. It had to go. Some things have to go for you to become the new Jacob, for you, the new Esau, to be where Jacob is. Jacob's pulling you. Some things can't go with it. You cannot put new wine in old wineskins. The new patches can't go on the old garments. The new garments aren't going to allow the old garments. The old garment gets left behind. That is the way it is. So when you're going through these trials and tribulations, understand you should be celebrating. You should be saying, let's burn the ships. Let's burn them all. Burn them all. That's what I say. Burn them all. When you get to this place of understanding and you start traveling through these Jacobs and Esau's, you celebrate. You celebrate. When you break loose from his yoke upon your neck, you are dead. Do not be embarrassed at what you lose. The best thing you can lose is false pride. You may have to go through the furnaces to lose false pride, for it is Jacob's command. That was a wonderful question. Question, next one. How do you see this golden light? Answer, I sit quietly and turn my eyes inward as if I'm looking into my skull. In a moment, a golden light begins to glow. Light begins to appear, and it looks like golden liquid light, and it comes before my eyes, and then it goes out in a circle after circle, like smoke rings. And these increase in rate, and then they become like a funnel with the big end at my face. Another exercise I practice, I take a table or a rug. I do not look at it, but focus my attention beyond it. And with my eyes partially open, I try to look below its surface. Suddenly, the whole thing will become alive. There is nothing dead in this world. This rug at which you are looking seems inanimate, but suddenly in its depths, people will appear. Do not be afraid, and you will walk into it. You, the real you, are not contained within the spatial boundaries of this body. That is only Esau. But you are an immortal being, and you can step through the seeming solid. If you would like confirmation of this technique, read the life of Da Vinci. He said that is how he got all of his paintings. He was the first one to give us he was the first one to give us the model of the airplane. Before the Wright brothers were thought of, he drew it. He said that when he wanted to paint, he would look into a modeled wall, and then all these people came out dressed in costumes, and they were not paid models. Modeled wall, M-O-T-T-L-E-D. He would look into a modeled wall, and then all these people came out dressed in costumes, and they were not paid M-O-D-E-L-S. They were not paid models. I was in Rome, as I said before, on my cruise that I imagined, and it happened, and we celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary last August of 2024, and we saw some of Da Vinci's art, and it was incredible. The master. And there was a lot to behold on that whole trip, I mean to tell you. Da Vinci. Take a wall in your home or look at the fireplace stones. They will become so familiar, and then the wall will change its face. Now this I've done millions of times. I mean, I would sit in meditation. It would, now in hindsight, I call it meditation, but I would just lay there and look at my ceiling and had these little acoustic 12 by 12 tiles. They had little holes in them. It was a 70s type of pattern thing. And we had put that in to cover the whole ceiling. The ceiling, I think was mottled plaster. It was, roughed up plaster or whatever. So we put that layer there. My family did, and then I would stare at those, and they would disappear. The holes in those 12 by 12 tiles would disappear, and then whole sections would be gone. Then it would just be a blank color of white. but the definition of it was completely gone. And I could just sit there and lay there and see that all the time. That was like a no-brainer. Take a wall in your home or look at the fireplace stones. They will become so familiar, and then the wall will change its face. It changes with your mood. Often it is a little girl, then it changes into something entirely different. This happens, I mean, I'm sure it happens to you. It happens to me too often. You could be in the shower and I look at the water droplets on the glass. And maybe this is a creative mind versus people who are very Esau focused. I don't know. But I look at the glass and I can see faces. I can see people. I can see all kinds of things in the water. If I'm in that creative mood, I can see a lot of stuff on the water, on the glass in the shower. Your senses begin to expand, for there is something in every child born of woman that is immortal. I personally have no experience to confirm reincarnation as commonly taught, but I do have many experiences concerning worlds within worlds. I cannot tell you if the popular conception of reincarnation is true or false. I know I have always been, and I know I was sent, and that world from which I was sent is real to me. Yet I had to go through what this world calls birth, but I do not call that reincarnation. That is the awakening of the sons of God. And there's only one, and that is Jacob or Jesus Christ. The immortal being in you has never been tarnished. You cannot tarnish Jacob. That's like, to me, him saying that to me is totally good news. And I believe it completely. You cannot tarnish Jacob. Esau has to go through all these things and fight all the way. We think there must be some redemption for Esau, but it is Jacob who has been given full control of the whole. We clothe and feed and even insure Esau. I love when he gets into the insurance stuff. That is hilarious. The being that cannot die is not insured, but we insure Esau. Read it carefully in the New Translation, the Nelson edition. They put it like a poem and it stands out like a gem. 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples born of you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The elder shall serve the younger. I was 7 before I knew about Jacob. Jacob did not like being tossed about by his father. And then when I was 21, I learned I was nothing but golden liquid light. Your homework right now is to go into your silence just for 2 minutes. Imagine lovingly whatever you want to imagine. Use Jacob. Put Jacob to task. Jacob is the one leading you wherever you want to be. He's the leader. Esau's the follower. The older serves the younger. Esau serves Jacob. Jacob is your imagination. Go into your silence. Exercise Jacob. Esau will follow. It's guaranteed. It isn't an if. It doesn't depend upon anything. You don't have to do penance. You don't have to self-flagellate. You don't have to whip yourself. There's nothing like that required. You just imagine. And all the Esau's, which are all the automatons of the world, will put it together for you without any effort. In all these videos, we've never broken a sweat. Not once did we ever have to go driving stakes for the railroad all day. We didn't have to roll up this or roll up that or do this or do that or punch a clock or do anything like that. We're just using Jacob. Okay. Go into your silence and we'll see you in the next one.